Welcome back to the Spiritual Business Blueprint. I'm Tracy Ann Rose, and today's episode is all about shadow work and how to use it to transform your life. So make sure you stay to the end. We'll be sharing some integrative tools on how to actually integrate your shadow instead of just overthinking about it and letting it become another hindrance. Hi, I'm Tracy Ann Rose, and I help spiritual high-achieving women of color break through income ceilings by tapping into their intuition without burning down their business. Today, as our guest, we have the lovely Caitey Margavage, and I met Caitey online, which is like a rarity, and we just kind of vibed from our initial meeting, and it's been so wonderful to learn more about her. And so you guys can learn more about her as well. Here's a little bit of her bio. Her name is Caitey, and she walks what she calls the priestess path, a sacred journey of remembrance, healing, and empowerment. It is her mission to support women and light beings in awakening to their highest calling, reconnecting with their divine essence, and reclaiming their sovereignty. Over the past decade, she's been devoted to the art of energy healing, spiritual alchemy, and transformational guidance. She began her path through the lens of psychology, earning her degree with a focus in addiction and mental health. Coming from a colorful and complex background herself, she's always felt a deep pull to be of service and hold space for others to find their light. Through her own healing journey, she discovered her natural gifts as an energy worker and spiritual teacher. From that point on, she knew she was meant to facilitate spaces of deep transformation, soul alignment, and heart-led empowerment. Her work weaves together Aquarian fire Reiki and intuitive energy healing, light language activations and channeling, shadow and inner child healing, feminine masculine energy balancing, divine feminine embodiment and archetypal work, mindset reprogramming, and spiritual psychology. Somatic tools include yoga, breathwork, and mindfulness. Her approach is intuitive, integrative, and rooted in love. She holds each session, circle, or container as a sacred ceremony, meeting you exactly where you are and guiding you toward your wholeness. This isn't just a brand, it's a living vibration. It's a remembrance of who you truly are beneath the conditioning, trauma, and limitations. She walks beside those who are ready to rise, soften, and reclaim the truth of their being. Oh, so good to have you.
So good to be here.
It's such a juicy intro. Like, I'm sure everyone's like, oh, like just like radiating with resonance right now, because everything that you're doing and the work that you are encompassing is the work that needs to be done, especially at this time, like astrologically. And I think really for women as a whole, as we're starting to move into our empowerment, it's time for us to do this type of work.
100%. It is vital to be able to understand these deeper parts of ourselves and able to truly shine, for us to be able to truly shine, because, and especially, and that's why shadow work, that when you asked me what I wanted to talk about, I'm like, well, to me, shadow healing is like the most important thing because it helps us to embrace more of our light in such a full, authentic way.
Yes, and when you embody more of your shadow, you embody more of your magnetism. And I think sometimes people forget that.
100%. Carl Jung used to talk about, who to me, he's like kind of the OG wave paver for shadow healing.
For sure.
And he talks about the golden shadow, right? Which is like our gifts, our hidden talents are like laying dormant underneath of those dark parts of ourselves.
So beautiful. So for those who are maybe new to this sort of work, how would you define shadow work?
Yeah. So to me, shadow work is uncovering all of the hidden, as in could possibly be like embarrassing or traumatic or parts of ourselves that we kind of keep to the background or even try to ignore ourselves. We try to keep them hidden, and we're sometimes ashamed or just really fearful of showing other people those parts of ourselves. And sometimes I think we can even forget that we have them until we start to deeply uncover them if we're really good at tucking them away. Actually, one of my favorite analogies is if you imagine yourself as a mansion, and when you're born, you have so many doors and rooms in that mansion. And then as you go through life, a lot of time in childhood is where our shadow begins. You start to feel that experiences, characteristics, or qualities of your life are deemed like inappropriate or just not acceptable. So you start to shut down each of those doors. And then before you know it, you're an adult and you're living in one room in your whole mansion, and you don't even know what exists in those other rooms.
Oh, that's such a good metaphor.
Yeah, one of my favorites. It breaks it down for me. I love like the imagery of things and bringing that into the work. I feel like that is just another level of being able to understand and conceptualize.
Yeah, it was because you're really like taking away useful parts of yourself. Maybe they're not yet understood fully, or maybe you've had a lot of contention with them, within society, but that doesn't mean that they don't serve a purpose. And so it kind of leads me to my next question. I'm really curious about how you've been able to maybe like access one of these rooms that you shut off from childhood, like doing your shadow work. Do you have a story of transformation for yourself? I'm sure you do. Like knowing all the stuff that you do, it's 100%, but would love for them to hear as well.
Yeah. So I mean, my whole story is like a myriad of many, many moments of to be fair and honest. Sometimes I try to make shadow healing like come at it from a perspective where we feel or we try to feel lightly about it, even though we get into some very heavy, sticky places with it. Because it's not something to be intimidated of. Like you said, it's unknown sometimes. And so a lot of times it's like, taking a flashlight and shining it into the dark and seeing what's really truly there about yourself. And the fact of the matter is I really feel like it's this reprogramming process of coming back to the belief that already exists in us that we are perfect just the way that we are. That regardless of experiences, what we've been through, how we look, how we feel about ourselves, that doesn't make us any less lovable or any less perfect is the best word than we are, right? We're perfectly imperfect. And so for me, it was this breaking down of understanding too that everyone has shadow, that it's not something that I myself have and should be ashamed of to hide from the world, because everybody has what it is that triggers them or what it is that's their obstacle that they have to move through. And so it was this continual process of meeting myself with love and compassion and grace, which is to me the embodiment of divine feminine healing. And so with that, it was like, sometimes it looked like just embodiment movement in my room and then hitting a breaking point of crying and just laying on the floor, holding myself in fetal position while I released whatever it was that I was releasing. I know you know a lot about this, that the work that you do, but emotions, experiences, and feelings live in the fascia of our body. And so embodiment, this divine feminine healing, is really like moving into the body and feeling whatever it is, the story, the feeling that's living in there, to come up and come out. One of my good friends used to always say, it's coming up to come out. And I use that all the time now because it's like, it is coming up to come out. And we're so good at disassociating, blocking, moving things adjacent so that we don't have to look at it, because pain is real and suffering is real when we're living there. But, it's this reminder to ourselves that every feeling and emotion does have an other side, an ending to it. And when we sit in it and move through it, we do make it to a different place where we alchemize the energies and it becomes something different for us. So let's see. For me, a lot of my trauma was, well, so I had childhood trauma, big traumas of not feeling seen and not feeling heard. And I think a lot of women struggle with this, at least a lot of women that I've worked with and seen, where they get into this like people pleaser kind of mentality of like overgiving, overdoing. And my nervous system was run ragged. Like the first probably like 2 years of my healing journey, I napped a lot because I was just so exhausted. I was like, is this what this is going to be forever? I don't know. I guess I just need this right now. So I really finding these ways to reparent myself and trusting, like I said, that there was this end to the process at some point, but to just be here now, exactly where I was. And, you know, I love sharing the sentiment with myself and with others that doing shadow healing and working on yourself isn't about loving who you'll be in the future when all the work is done.
Preach.
It's about loving yourself and having acceptance for exactly as you are right here, right now. That there's nothing to do, nothing to change, that you are, like I said, perfect, imperfectly perfect, right where you're at. And that is when true magic starts to take place. So going back, I really started my healing journey. It was actually, so I became certified in energy healing about 10 years ago, almost a decade ago. But then I didn't really dig into shadow healing until a couple years into my journey. It was almost like I was living on this kind of like pink cloud of spirituality.
Oh yeah, I think we all get there. Like we're like in the spiritual honeymoon phase where you're like, oh yes, like everything's good. They're manifesting a perfect life. I'm fine.
And then it just became clear to me that it wasn't sustainable with things I wanted to manifest, how I wanted to create my life. It was like what I was intending wasn't matching what my reality was, which led me to dive into some of that deeper work. Even within relationships, where I've been doing some of my deepest shadow healing work, just learning about mirroring and like kind of, you know, what's going on in the subtle subconscious of me that's creating this external world around me. It's sometimes, you know, this work is not logical, it's intuitive.
And it's like sometimes you do have the logic click in the most unexpected places. But yeah, it relies on you to trust yourself and to really also be very honest with yourself.
Oh, 100%. And that can be in itself so scary, especially when most of us grew up in environments where it wasn't safe to trust the environment or ourselves. And, you know, as children, we're completely dependent upon our environment and surroundings until we get to a place where we can take care of ourselves. So it's like rewiring and, as I was saying, like reparenting those parts of self that like just didn't have. So yeah, I guess it wasn't really like one big moment, but like tons of micro moments of coming back to myself and just meeting myself truly for exactly where I was, even when parts of my shadow came up, which would have included things of, like I said, trauma from childhood, dishonesty, disloyalty, betrayal, and things that were kind of icky living inside of me, but like what we all have. And so diffusing that it wasn't making me or unworthy, or it wasn't like me being unworthy in any way, and just getting really real with myself.
So it sounds like there were a lot of little steps where you needed to check in along the way. Want to check in and like shine that light and see, okay, I'm feeling this way. I could potentially go into a state of shaming myself or rejecting this part of myself, but instead I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to nurture it, right? I'm going to be compassionate towards it. And I'm going to see how that allows it to naturally shift or dissolve sometimes. If like, nothing is perfect, but there are those moments where if we just give ourselves the ability to be aware and to acknowledge what's happening, that it really just allows that tense energy or that limiting belief or that judgment about ourselves to just float away, or experience an instance where it's actually like a benefit, it's actually a gift, and it's not what we had initially conceived of it.
Yes, 100%. That's beautifully said. It is, this is what the work is, because it's
100%.
not easy to meet yourself authentically always when you have to be fully honest about the truth of how either you feel about yourself or how something looks. Everything's not, it's life. It's not neatly packaged and tied in a bow, right? It's complicated and messy and confusing sometimes.
And like that's the beauty of it. I was thinking about like one of my old shadow words that I used to have was controlling, which was like super triggering to me. Like when it was like early on in my spiritual journey, probably. I think it sounds like we both started energy work around the same time, like about 10 years ago. And so I think it was around like 2014. I was doing my Reiki master certification, and like that was a shadow word that came up for me in the process. But now that I've learned to appreciate it more, it very much is my superpower. Like before then I didn't have kids, so I think maybe it was also like it needed a place to go. But now that I have kids, I'm like, oh, like I can create a schedule for them that really helps them get their energy out, and that is a lot of fun for us and gets me rest and gets my husband rest, and also we have family time. Like it's like it just needs a place to go. So if there's a quality that you have about yourself and you're listening and you're like, I don't know, like it only seems negative, it just needs a place to go. It's just misplaced energy.
That's beautifully said. And, another way to think about shadow or, healing from these darker parts of self is if you think about words, right? Words have impact and have meaning, but the same words aren't going to affect the same people in different ways. Our words are like our words that affect us, right? Because of situations, experiences, stories that surround them, things that we've heard, belief systems. And so a word could have a positive charge, a negative charge, or be neutral. And so we can change the way that word feels inside of us. Like for me, one of my big words was sensitive. And I hated it when I was younger because I always got told I was too sensitive. And I had to like suck it up. And, and there was like this time in my life when I thought that I had to just like push through stuff back and like keep it moving. And I'm highly sensitive. I remember for a while I was like in therapy after my dad had passed away. And we were talking about sensitivity. And I'd kind of even come full circle with, a lot of my healing and shadow. But as we know, it works spirally, right? So you revisit the same things again, but to deeper degrees. And she's like, have you ever read the book, The Highly Sensitive Person? Because I feel like this is, and I kind of like brushed it past. I'm like, yeah, I know I'm sensitive. But then even like, I think it was even a year and a half later, I wasn't even in therapy anymore. I picked up the book and I was like, oh my gosh, this is just so validating to like how I operate. But anyway, I used to despise the word, and it was very triggery for me because it was associated with shadow, with pain, with suffering, right? And then now, it is literally my greatest gift. I use it to help other people to heal, to feel into the subtle energy body and different things in that world, which I would not be able to do if I wasn't so sensitive.
I love that. So that's a beautiful point. I love that you brought that in of just like, like this is your access to being a part of the collective that you want to serve. This is your access point to abundance, to a deeper sense of you. So if you're listening right now and if you're feeling really called to understand yourself more deeply, please be sure to check the show notes, to book a call, and to get more connected to who your shadow self is and what it's trying to express so that you can finally integrate that part of yourself and bring it into your business. Okay, back to our lovely conversation. I really wanted to ask you, because this is something that's been on my mind. I'm always about like, okay, what can we do to get into the physical embodiment? embodiment has become a bit of a buzzword nowadays where everyone's like, oh, like embody. But it's like, what are the tools, or what's your favorite tool even, that you use to embody parts of your shadow self in order to integrate them?
Yeah, great question. So many. To just go over, like you said, some of my favorite ones. I mean, one of the reasons that I decided to teach yoga was because that is a huge way to help with embodiment. And it's so funny because I used to be so disassociated from my body. And when I took my YTT training, I actually had no plans of being a yoga teacher whatsoever.
I love that.
I was just like, this is for me. Like, I need to know my body more. I'm so disassociated and it's like really hard for me to feel grounded and connected. And so I like took it, and then it really just naturally grew to where I understood that because I had been through so much, I had also been in like a lot of car accidents when I was going through my traumas, which created more disassociation from my body, physical pain that was being held with the emotional pain. I used to have low back pain, like so many different things that were held inside my body. And so yoga became this beautiful tool of alchemy for me to explore in just free ways. Like some of the teachers that I had were just such blessings because the containers that they held were so sacred and so accepting and loving. And that became part of my vision, was like, I had someone hold this space for me. I want to hold this space for someone else because this is so powerful and I feel so loved.
Oh, yeah, that's so beautiful.
So yoga, but also in a combination with breath work. Breath work changed my life. I feel like breath work is this like biohack.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah. It like helps you, to me, like it helped me quantum leap and like move to different levels that I
100%. Yeah.
possible.
And so quickly is what I've noticed, because we're not, and then this is just my take on it, but it's like when we're confronting that energy that's built up, but not in a way of like anger. I mean, then you could feel angry, of course, but like it's you're having an intentional interaction with that energy in breathwork. And I think that's what makes it partially like so effective. Of course, all the biochemical aspects. But I think also the intention, it really shifts things very quickly, I've noticed, for people.
Oh, 100%. I mean, as you probably know, even too, as an energy person, like I stress to everybody, intention, intention, intention. Like where your attention goes, the energy flows. And that is the container for your intention. Where do you want to move forward to? So yeah, breath work. And I feel like because you're like, prana, breath, is life force energy. And when you're doing like concentrated, like consistent breathe, you're bringing in life force energy that's like, let's move stuff, let's move stuff, let's move stuff. So yeah, breath work. And then two other subtle tools, not so subtle, not so subtle, that really helped me when I was in my moments where, say, I wasn't like in a yoga class or in a breathwork session or just like the spaces in between, were tapping, because my nervous system was so dysregulated that sometimes I just needed these like gentle reminders of like, hey, you're here, you're physical, everything's safe, you're okay. And like coupling that with affirmations was always a beautiful transformative process. And little secret to affirmations, right? That is what I call a stair-stepping journey, because you can't start with saying affirmations that you don't believe in your body, because there's going to be discord, right? Of the resonance of like, your body's going to be like, you're lying to me. I don't believe you. If you're like, I unconditionally love and approve of myself, your body's like, yeah, no, you don't. So finding stair-stepping affirmations of like, I'm learning to love myself unconditionally. And it's a process, and I'm learning to love myself more and more. And then that gets you to the higher vibrational affirmations that, we want to embody. So yeah, those were some good ones for me.
Yeah, I love those. And you can do them very easily. Like they're very accessible. I mean, simply making a choice to check in with yourself and say some of these phrases, I think it also is a form of, well, of course, as we're talking about shadow work, but it is a form of doing shadow work, noticing your reaction to these thoughts, to these affirmations, and where you need to maybe do some alchemization around that word, around the concept, around your relationship with that quality. So I really love that too, because I think, like we said, like these small things can be so powerful with the proper intention.
Oh, 100%. And one of my favorite speakers and that I used to listen to when I first kind of started this journey, I always liked Dr. Bruce Lipton. He did the biology of belief. And he talked about how belief is just a thought that you think over and over and over to yourself, that you build it up so solidly in your system, it becomes a belief. So I always tell people we're in the reprogramming game. And sometimes to reprogram, we have to it's repetitive. And so sometimes you find yourself doing the same song and dance over and over again. Sometimes I felt like a broken record. I'm like, again? Okay, again. Oh, and I actually came up with, I'm sure it exists in other realms and other ways, but a 3-step process to help me when I'm recognizing my shadow and how to address it, like in the moment when I'm being triggered, which...
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And like you said, triggers are the gold. That's how we start to realize like, oh, that's shadow coming up and this is something for me to look at. So the first step is notice, right? With any practice, with anything that you're doing, awareness is that first step to start change. So noticing whatever it is that's coming up. And then from the noticing, it's holding space for it. So having a form of acceptance. And if you're here at the gratitude space, then gratitude. But it's, again, a process, right? We can't always jump from down here highs up to gratitude because that's inauthentic, right? Sometimes we have to start with just acceptance. It is what it
Truly.
And then from that, the third space or the third step is to rewrite the story. What is it that I actually want to tell myself? What is it that I want to feel? How can I reword this or rewire this in a way that actually feels good to me? Right? So notice, accept, and then rewrite.
That's beautiful. So if you are listening, make sure you jot that down. So next time, if you feel triggered, and a great way to get triggered is by watching reality TV. I know for myself, like I'm like, that's how I notice like my shadow side. If I'm watching somebody and I'm judging them, I'm like, oh, Tracy, why are you judging them? Like, what is it about them that you feel they shouldn't be or that you don't want to be seen as?
Yeah.
And it just helps you also make light of the process as well. There's so many ways to approach this kind of work. And we do experience so much pain on a daily basis. Like, how can we infuse this healing journey with more joy as well as self-awareness?
Definitely. And one note, I thought of this when you were talking about the reality TV, by the way, is like a great way. I love that so much because then it's like you're actually removed from the drama. It's like adjacent. Yeah. You're not actually dealing with it in your life, but you can see and work through it in real time, which is amazing. But sometimes, so there's that trick, right, of with shadow, like a way that we spot it's through triggers, but like, what we see in others is what's in ourselves. Now, this can be tricky, right? Because say you see someone who is incredibly selfish with, like, let's say their time. And you are like, I can't believe that that person is so selfish with their time, right? But you are not really selfish with your time. Maybe you like give a lot and you're always up. But the shadow would lie in where do you overgive? Where do you overperform and over show up, right? Because that's going to create that resentment of where you hold the lock. So it is what we see in others always. It is that sentiment of like you have one finger pointing out, you've got three back at yourself. But it's like being creative of like, okay, well, why? What's the deeper root of why this is affecting me? Because it may not be exactly what it seems on the surface.
So true. It wasn't even a run-in, but I had a situation a few weeks ago where I was in some group and I was like, this person is not, they were really just asserting their needs. But I was like, the Libra sun in me was like, this person is not harmonizing with the group and I don't like it. And then when I looked at it, I was like, oh no, this person is just asserting their needs. And I'm feeling some type of way because I don't feel comfortable or confident doing that in the group setting like this person does. And so it was really actually inspiring to realize, okay, it's not that I need to be angry at this person. It's more so I'm being shown somewhere where I'm holding myself back and I'm not being fair to myself.
100%. The Libra sun in me sees the Libra sun in you.
Oh my gosh, I love harmony. But then I have to realize like, okay, like it can't always be harmonious. And, like tension does allow growth to occur.
100%.
That's just natural.
It's so really the sentiment of the shadow in itself though, too, right? Like you can't have the light, bright without the darkness of the shadow. It creates contrast. It creates the beautiful flow of gradation and variation in between. And that is literally the essence of life.
Yeah, it's that fluidity and allowing ourselves to experience that without judgment. I love this conversation. Thank you so much for being here, Caitey. Where can our listeners find you?
Yes. So my Instagram is a great way to follow just all the events and things that I'm doing. That is Priestess Path by Caitey, and Caitey is Caitey. And then from there, that's actually probably the best way because you can get to my booking page, you can get to my contact info. So that's a really grounded way to find me.
Oh, love that. Thank you again for being on the show. It was such a pleasure just chatting it up with you about shadow work.
Absolutely. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be able to talk about things that I love.
So thank you all for listening. If you heard something that really resonated with you, make sure that you like, subscribe, follow, share to anybody who you feel like this could also help and benefit. And if you're looking to do deeper work one-on-one, please feel free to check the show notes for my link to book a sales constellation. We'll see you next time. Bye.